Hi, guys. Welcome to week 7 of Fundamentals of Legal Research. And this week, we're going to really work on how, how to figure out what a statutory or a constitutional section means and how to interpret it and how courts will interpret them. So, for constitutional analysis, we know that our Constitution is the supreme law of our land. It's over 200 years ago. And when the framers wrote the Constitution, they purposefully left language loose and so that they can adapt to different situations. Actually, to tell you the truth, just last week, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was at the Jefferson Memorial, and I took a picture of something that is written on the Jefferson Memorial, where Thomas Jefferson had said, "I am not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind as it becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change. With change of circumstances, institutions must advance also to keep pace with the times. We might as well require a man to wear still the coat which fitted him when a boy, as a civilized society to remain ever under the regimen of their barbarous ancestors." I thought it was pretty cool. So, Thomas Jefferson, one of the authors of the Constitution and definitely the author of the Declaration of Independence, was like, we don't know what the future is going to be like, and our government has to be left to change. So the language in the Constitution is fuzzy, and the terms in the Constitution can be subject to interpretation. And so the courts have to interpret these terms as applied to the facts at hand. So when we're doing constitutional research, we are always doing federal, when we're doing federal law. And we're also always doing case law. So, because, sorry, I'm actually just sending that photo to myself so I can post it for you. Um, it's going to be case law because the Constitution is short and the time between when the Constitution was passed and now is long. So there are a lot of cases that interpret different sections of the Constitution and comprise what is constitutional law today. So when we're doing constitutional analysis, we're looking at the sections of the Constitution, but much more importantly, we're looking at the cases that interpret it. Okay, so our fuzzy terms, we have to apply them to concrete facts. Does this section of our code, does this criminal law violate cruel and unusual punishment bans? Okay, so what are our concrete facts that we're applying here? So we're always researching cases when we're doing constitutional law. And this United States Supreme Court, although, lower courts can do some constitutional interpretation, the U.S. Supreme Court has the final say on what the Constitution means. Okay, so remember, you may have constitutional issues rising in state court cases like Miller versus Alabama, but the law itself is federal law, and we're always looking at case law when we're doing constitutional research. Okay, so one of the things that's important to talk about when we start talking about statutory analysis is federalism. Okay, we are citizens of or residents of the United States if we're not citizens. And we are subject to both federal laws and state laws. So when the way our country came about, we were colonies and kind of independent colonies, and we were sick of another institution in that situation, the British government, telling us what to do. So we needed a centralized form of government, the federal government, but the colonies wanted to keep their independence and their mindset and their individuality. So we have what is called a federalist system, federalism. And so I am, as a resident of Illinois, I have to follow Illinois laws and I have to follow federal laws. And if I travel to Florida, I have to follow Florida laws and federal laws. So we're subject to both the laws of the federal government and the laws of any state in which we're residing in or visiting at the time. So the federal government has limited powers over 50 states, limited power. Remember, the Constitution sets out what the federal government can do and what the federal government cannot do. And what is left goes to the states. And the state laws govern our boundaries over only, so when I go to Wisconsin, I don't have to follow Illinois law. And state laws cannot conflict with federal law. If they conflict, the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution requires that the federal law wins and the state law has to suffer. Sometimes federal and state law overlap. Okay, we call that concurrent jurisdiction. So there's murder statutes in state and federal law. There are illegal drug statutes in both state and federal law. Laws against conspiracy, laws against monopoly, all sorts of different laws where they overlap. But sometimes they're conflicts where they're different. And if there are conflicts, then the federal law would apply based on our supremacy clause of the United States Constitution, because the United States Constitution is the supreme law of our land. So if the state law conflicts with the Constitution, just like Miller versus Alabama, right? They said that the state law was violated cruel and unusual punishment. So the U.S. Supreme Court says that's unconstitutional, and they strike it down. But sometimes, because there are both state and federal laws on a topic, doesn't mean that it is a conflict. Okay, there's just cases of concurrent jurisdiction, and they live peacefully together. So yeah, our federal law puts out our minimum rights. The state law can expand on those rights. Remember, we looked at the Illinois Constitution, which gave us more rights than the federal Constitution did. There can be federal crimes and state crimes, and it's really just who chooses to bring this alleged criminal to justice. So if it's, say you have a kidnapping charge, there can be federal kidnapping charges. And then if the feds take the case first, then they take the case. But if they choose not to, the state prosecutor can bring this kidnapping charge. On constitutional issues, whichever law provides more rights will control. Okay. I thought I changed this. One sec.